I've had friends ask me time and time again over the years, how do you homeschool? Like, I want to homeschool, but I don't even know where to start. And I'm a second generation homeschooler. It's all that I know. And I wasn't quite sure what they meant by that question, because in my mind it was just, well, you choose a curriculum and then you teach it to your kids. But I'm realizing that it's not that simple to everyone. People have so many questions. So if you're wondering, like, literally, what book do you pick up? How do you teach it to your kids? What is your routine beginning to end? This is going to be a full breakdown of a complete homeschool day with my kids who are 10 and 8 years old. Let's get started. Hi guys, I'm Livy with Daisy Chain Principles. Thank you for coming back, or welcome if you are new here. I love sharing our homeschool journey on here to help homeschool parents take their day from frustrating to functional with practical tips, how to teach, as well as how to keep the spark in teaching your kids, as well as time management and efficiency. But today I'm taking a step back because I realize I need to offer something to someone who has a desire to homeschool but isn't confident about it yet. This is a deep dive into literally what we do every day. I'm not going to so much cover the legal side of homeschooling. You want to go to HSLDA and look up the laws in your state for that, and I will link it below. I'm also not going to dive too deep into how to choose your curriculum or where to find them, although I will let you know where to find the curriculum I personally use. But if you want more of a deep dive, particularly on how to find a good curriculum, you can download my totally free ebook, How to Choose Your First Homeschool Curriculum in 3 Easy Steps, linked below. Let's dive right in. So I homeschool my 10-year-old and 8-year-old right now from 9 a.m. till noon. That is our complete time block. Our actual work is about 2.5 hours, but you'll see that I break it up with little breaks and also try to leave plenty of cushion just for life, attitude adjustments, pauses, what have you. The first hour, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., is dedicated just to group subjects, which I read aloud to both my kids. Some people refer to this as morning basket time simply because it's become a trend to put everything that you read aloud to your kids in a literal basket. We don't do that. We refer to it as morning read aloud here, but it's all the same thing. It takes about 45 minutes, but I allow 1 hour. In this hour, we cover prayer, emergency information, geography, history, poetry, science, and Bible. Here is how I do it. We sit in the living room. I usually lay out some fidgets and or snacks, and then I offer the kids an opportunity to pray for homeschool time, and if they don't want to or don't feel like it, then I pray. Then we move right into emergency information, which is pretty self-explanatory. I just want to make sure they know what to do in certain situations, that they are sharp on all the phone numbers and addresses they need to know. So the prayer and the emergency information is only going to take 2 to 3 minutes pretty much. After that, I ask them a few questions they should always know about whatever chapter book we are reading for geography and history. Right now, we're reading Heart of a Samurai to study Japan. So before we break out the actual books, I'm going to ask them, what century did this take place in? They should be able to know 1800 AD. I'm going to ask them, show me on the map where this took place, and they're going to show me Japan on our globe back here, and then I'm going to ask them what continent that is in, and they're going to say Asia and show me Asia on the map. Again, this takes like 3 to 5 minutes, not long, but doing it consistently every day until they memorize those little facts is so valuable. Then we move right into Spanish. I just use Duolingo because it's a free app, it's interactive, it's fun, it requires 0 prep time from me. We have it on the easiest level, so the lessons are only supposed to take 5 minutes. We take it pretty slow since we do it as a group. It takes us about 10 minutes, and we do it on my laptop. After Spanish, we are done with all group subjects that don't have to do with books because we're just conversing, looking at the globe, or on my laptop. So I kind of break it up into two sections of group subjects, not books, and group subjects that are actual reading aloud. So now we're going to move into that read aloud. We have 3 different books we read, starting with poetry. Right now we are reading Where the Sidewalk Ends, which is humorous poetry for kids. And I usually just read 2 pages. It takes about 5 minutes. Next, we're going to read a book called The Wonder of Creation. This is the 3rd book in a series by Louis Giglio. Every day is a 2-page devotional that teaches the kids something about science and then connects it back to the majesty and goodness of God. It takes us about 10 minutes to get through it, and we consider this both Bible and science. And lastly, the best part, we read our chapter book, which is all I do currently. I don't use any sort of real curriculum for history and geography. I just choose a haul of chapter books that teach history. Right now we are studying Japan. Heart of a Samurai is based on a true story, and I read from our chapter book 10 minutes a day. Right now we can do a chapter to a chapter and a half because they're shorter in this book in 10 minutes, but I have that 10-minute standard in case they are really, really long chapters. I'm not going to read for 30 to 45 minutes out of one book. We just cap it wherever it ends at 10 minutes. Then that is the end of a read aloud time for us, and then the kids get a 5-minute break before we begin individual classes. So I work one-on-one with each child to do their handwriting and reading, which we do at the same time kind of as a language arts time, and then math. So Daisy goes first. After that 5-minute break, we are going to do her handwriting and reading. I use Handwriting Without Tears for both of my kids' handwriting curriculum. I believe the website is learningwithouttears.org or learningwithouttears.com. I will put it right here on the screen as well as link it below. In preschool and in kindergarten, this curriculum uses these little round kind of blocks that the kids put together to shape letters before they even start tracing them. And then once they move into the workbook, they have little chalkboards they use so kids can learn to draw perfectly symmetrical letters. It is the most effective handwriting curriculum in my opinion, and for whatever reason, it's very common that kids get frustrated easily and don't enjoy handwriting, and this is truly handwriting without tears. So I'm having my kids do all the levels. There is 6 levels, I believe. No, I think it's 7 because it's preschool, kindergarten through 5th grade. For the most part, at the age that my kids are now, they don't have to use the chalkboard, but if I notice their handwriting regressing, not being as neat and tidy and symmetrical, we will get that chalkboard back out to kind of clean it up. So Daisy only takes about 5 minutes on her handwriting page. Then we go right into the remaining 15 minutes because she's on a 20-minute time block, and I go by time block to teach. I do not go by lessons or chapters or anything else. Then we spend the remaining 15 minutes on All About Reading Level 1. I will put the website for the All About Reading curriculum here as well as link it below. This program is a mastery program, meaning that small concepts are introduced to the child in small doses for long periods of time so that it guarantees the child has truly mastered the concept before you move on to the next. It's also intended for children with dyslexia. If you look at the packages online, they can seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but all you really have to do is open the teacher manual and do what it says page by page. It's going to say, today you're teaching her flashcards 1 through 5. Then it might say, next you're going to have your child read this title in their reader. Next it might say to flip to this page in their activity book and cut out the squares, and this is how you play the game. So don't be intimidated by how much comes in the package. It's very straightforward, very user-friendly, whether you have experience teaching or not. When Daisy's time is up, she gets to take a break while I work with her brother. Silas also does reading first. Reading is Daisy's weaker subject, so she gets it for a shorter amount of time. Then Silas, reading is his stronger subject, so I want him to study it for a longer amount of time. So he gets a 30-minute time block. He is using the same curriculum, but he is in level 4, which is the last level in this curriculum. When his time is up, we move into Daisy's math lesson. Math is her stronger subject, so she gets a 25-minute time block for it. Not 30, just because she's younger, although she probably could do 30 minutes, but we do 25 for now. We use math lessons for a living education. This is a faith-based curriculum, very simple, straightforward, so user-friendly that you don't even have a teacher answer key until I think 3rd grade. Typically, there is not any prep time in this curriculum. You just do what the page tells you to. It uses something called a spiral approach, which I'm a big fan of in math. I think it's a mistake to just do page after page of multiplication or division. I think that fries our brains too quickly. So all of these lessons are split really well into just a few minutes of addition, a few minutes of subtraction, a few minutes of practicing telling time, a few minutes of learning to count money. My kids are very distractible, like most of us these days, and they seem to learn better with this approach. Occasionally, there will be an optional craft in one of the lessons, and I find that it's usually stuff I either have around the house or can grab at the dollar store. When Daisy's 25 minutes for math is done, she is done with school for the day, and I move into math with my son. He is in math lesson for a living education also. Now, he is still practicing multiplication and division, so I will drill flashcards with him for about 3 minutes before we open the actual math curriculum. So right now we're going through the 6s family and the 5s family. And as he masters them and says them quickly, I kind of separate it into a mastered multiplication and division pile and a still needs practiced multiplication and division pile until he can say them all really, really fast. Then we'll move on to the 7s and 8s multiplication and division families. But again, I really feel like 3 to 5 minutes on those flashcards is the sweet spot to helping them memorize it and master it over a long period of time without burning them out and making them just feel mentally fried from doing too much of one thing for a long time. Silas is 10, so he can do most of his math without me. He's able to read his own instructions and understand most of it. Depending on what it is and how much he says he wants my help, I'll either be sitting beside him or I might be doing dishes at the kitchen sink in between answering his questions. And I have him spend 20 minutes, by the way, on math because math is by far his harder subject. Then school is done for the day and I move into making lunch. I want to note a couple things just because I know I'm going to be asked about them. First of all, the reason that I do time blocking instead of one lesson a day is so that the focus can be on comprehension and learning and not how much we accomplish. So in other words, if my child has an incredibly hard time, really gets hung up on a concept, it is perfectly okay to pull over and park on that for the rest of the lesson if need be. I only care that they understand the material, not that they are up to speed on whatever the most recent standard is. Now, there's a balance here because if we never finished a complete lesson or they were falling way behind or they weren't understanding no matter how much time we spent on something, that would mean either my time block is too short or the material itself is too hard and I need to go back a grade, or a combination of the two. On average, my kids complete 2 math lessons per day. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's half a lesson, sometimes it's 3 lessons. As long as the goal is comprehension, that's all I care about. The other thing I wanted to address, and I know that I'll probably get negative feedback for this, and that's okay, is giving my kids a longer amount of time to study things that already come easy to them and giving them a shorter amount of time for the things that are not their strengths. I realize that's probably backward from traditional schooling, and that's on purpose. There's a quote that says, if your child were great at tennis and terrible at math, you might think to hire a math tutor, whereas I would think to hire a tennis coach. One of my biggest priorities in homeschooling is freedom for my kids to be who they are. I think that math is important. I don't think math is so important that they shouldn't be allowed to do better somewhere else. I want them to have the opportunity to go from good to great, from gifted to genius. There is a speech in the book by John Taylor Gatto. He was a teacher in New York for, 20 or 30 years, but he wrote a book called Dumbing Us Down. Actually, I think I have it here. Yes, this book will change your life. I will link it below. Every parent should read it, truly. Even if you keep your kids in school, this will still be a useful tool to you. He has a speech in here, and this is a collection of speeches he gave to, I think, the high school he taught at. But he has one in here called The School Bell that breaks down why the school bell and only allowing kids certain amounts of time to focus on something that they might be really gifted in and they might need really long amounts of time to learn, why this creates adults who don't believe in their own ability, adults who think that their only capability is mediocre at best. So without going too far down that rabbit trail, that is why I time block more for their gifts and less for their weaknesses, and always will. It's also why I time block more for their free time, which is the entire afternoon and evening, and less for their focused study time, which is only 3 hours in the morning. And honestly, going by this design has given us the most beautiful lifestyle. Highly recommend. Well, I hope that this brought some value to you and made you feel like you can do it. So much of our subjects are literally just reading stories out loud. There are educators, especially one, her name was Charlotte Mason, who really believed that we learn better when something is like, she called them living books, meaning it's a story and it's not just dry facts. And I love that I have the freedom to do that in homeschooling. I will make sure every book and every curriculum is linked below. Always feel free to email me on my website if you have any questions, and I will see you guys next time. Happy homeschooling.